I never learned how to hit a curveball. Even when I played college baseball, I tended to sit on pitches and only swung at fastballs. You can tell the difference by the way the seams rotate. I was pretty well known as a fastball hitter. That was the end of my professional aspirations. I did get a good education, though. That helped me a lot, as after a couple years of playing, I probably would have deflated anyway. A good education always pays off. It certainly did for me. 25 years after graduation, and after 15 years of working in my major, I got my dream job. I was a full-time professor with an exempt chair in the engineering school of a major university in Texas, consulting on major government construction projects and heading one of NIST's manufacturing labs. Tessa and I bought the posh house in a gated community we'd always dreamed of, and life was throwing me fastballs right down the middle. I was hitting them off one after another. Our oldest daughter, Tori, was a junior in high school, attending the same school where I taught, and studying civil engineering like her old man. Life was in a vice, and the lights kept going out. And then, a curveball appeared. I didn't recognize it at first. I didn't even realize the ball was in play. It came in the form of a call from Tori. "Daddy, what's going on?" she asked. "Oh, nothing much," I replied. "Just sitting on the internet. What's wrong with you, Dove?" "I went by the house to get your jack," she said. "There was a delivery truck there. I walked in and my mom was there. She was watching the movers. She said she was moving out, that you were having problems and needed some time apart. Why didn't you say anything?" I was dumbfounded. "Ha ha, good for you, Tori," I finally managed to mutter. "Daddy, this isn't a joke," she said. "What's going on?" "Jesus." "I have no idea," I said. "Are you sure, baby? This isn't a joke?" "Daddy, I'm here watching. You have to come over here. I don't know what's going on and Mommy won't tell me." "Did you do something?" That was one hell of a question. I'd probably done a lot of things, but I had no idea what something would make Tessa leave. I wasn't the perfect husband. I was well aware of all my flaws. But she wasn't the perfect wife either. No one is perfect. I certainly wasn't a cheater, wasn't a criminal, hadn't gained 300 pounds, and as far as I was concerned, didn't have horrible body odor. I made arrangements with the assistants who would teach my classes and raced home at breakneck speed. The truck was parked in the driveway, just like Tori said it would be. She met me on the street. "She won't tell me anything," she said. "You really have no idea about anything." "No, dear, I don't guess. She hasn't said a word to me about any trouble." "Well, Daddy, if you haven't cheated on her or insulted her or said mean things, I've got your back, okay?" "I promise I haven't done anything even remotely similar," I told her. I sighed. "Let's go see if she wants to talk." "Are you sure you want to be here?" "Of course," she said. "Dad, I'm going to record this on my phone. Talitha will want to know what happened." Talitha was her little sister and our baby. I gave Tori a quick hug and we headed out to get the lion, so to speak. Tessa was in the living room supervising the movers who were loading a hideous living room set that she just couldn't live without. "Tessa, what are you doing?" I asked. "I'm leaving you, Dax," she said. "I don't want to argue with you about this. You won't change my mind. You'll only make me angry, and I'll get angry and get nowhere." "Well, that's a good speech, Mom," Tori said. "I hate to tell you, but I'm already mad." "No, I guess I don't hate to tell you this. Unless you want to piss me off completely, I suggest you try to make us both realize what the hell you're letting on." Damn, she was pissed. Tori was the sweetest girl on the planet, but as I'd learned over the years, she had quite a temper if she thought she'd been wronged. She almost never swore. I could tell Tessa was thinking the same thing. She gave the movers a couple directions and took Tori's hand. "Let's go on deck," she said. Tori yanked his hand away, but we followed Tessa onto the deck. She closed the sliding door and seemed to gather her thoughts. "I met someone." She finally managed to say it. "You don't know him. He moved here from New Mexico about 6 months ago and is in real estate. I'm going to be with him. I can't just cheat, so I'm leaving. I've already filed divorce papers, Dax." "Now that's a surprise," I said. "You couldn't just cheat, could you? You met like it was yesterday, fell in love at first sight, and immediately knew you were made for each other, right?" Tori snorted. Right. That's the way it always works. Mom, how stupid do you think we are? I don't think, Tori interrupted her. You're a real estate agent, Mom. You don't have to consider your time. How many failed dates, dinners, showings with Romeo have you had? It's not. It was my turn. Yes, it is. You can't randomly decide you're leaving your husband and dating your soulmate. How do you know what you're meant to do? Okay, have it your way, she said. You can make something cheap out of it if you want. You don't have to make anything, Tori said. It's cheap as it is. I realize you're stabbing Daddy in the back, and that's between you and him. But how do you envision it with me? Or with Talitha, for that matter? I love you both, darling. That won't change, Tessa hastened to assure her. I still love you, Dax. It's just… She couldn't finish. So you claim to have feelings for me, Tori said. And how do you expect me to feel about you? How do you think Talitha will treat me? I know you're upset, Tessa began. You're going to have to accept that nothing about our relationship is going to change, Tori. You're going to love Charles when you get to know him better. I'm not going to get to know him better, Tori hissed. I don't want anything to do with some jerk who's hitting on a married woman. I'm going to tell Talitha about it too. Something has already changed in our relationship. All my respect for you is gone. I'll see you very rarely. If you ever bring that piece of shit to me, I'm going to spit on him. Tori, I know. You don't know shit, Tori hissed. I've never been so disappointed in someone in my life. You've ruined everything. God, I hate you, Mom. Tessa looked at me helplessly. Dax. Don't look at me, I told her. It's on your conscience. I think the full extent of what she'd done began to dawn on her as she shifted her gaze from one of us to the other. Tori clutched at my arm. Let's go, Daddy. I don't want to be around Skankenstein. Let's go get Talitha. Tessa let out a small cry of horror at her daughter calling her a bad name, but I was already being led up the deck steps by my very angry daughter. She practically dragged me to her car and sat me in it, even opening the door for me. I felt like I was moving in slow motion. Talk about shock. I must have been an ignorant idiot. Tori got in the car, started it up, and looked at me. Daddy, it's going to be okay, she said. I know you're floundering here, but for the foreseeable future, I'm going to make it my mission in life to make sure the person I love most in the world gets through this and is happy. Now buckle up. It's the law. I buckled up, and it felt good. Tori had always driven like a bat out of the underworld, and she added poison to that. When she got her bachelor's degree, we asked her what she wanted as a graduation present. She wanted a car, and a specific one at that. A 2017 Audi R8 V 10+ Spider. We could afford it, and she deserved it. She worked hard, graduated second in her class, was accepted into graduate school, and we were very proud of her. As always, when I traveled with her, I held on to everything I could. Jesus, baby, I complained. You're going to kill me, and you won't have to worry about this foreseeable future thing. She laughed, as she always did, and didn't slow her step a bit. It was about 10 miles to the apartment she shared with Talitha, and I know it didn't take us 10 minutes to get there. The girls were polar opposites. Not in looks, in that respect they were almost twins, but in personality. It always amazed me that two children of the same parents, raised in the same home, could be so different. Tori was energetic, always alert, always talking and just sparking with energy. Talitha was quiet, loving, very affectionate, and the only time you saw the same energy in her that you saw in Tori was in sports. She played softball and was a dynamo on the field. Talitha was home. She squealed when she saw me, slid onto the couch and patted it for me to sit next to her. Hi, Daddy. What are you doing? She wrapped her arms around me and snuggled against my side, while Tori took the same position on the other side. Hi, sweetie. It's been a hell of a day. Oh? Those huge blue puddles looked up at me. How's it going? You're not going to believe this, Tori said. Sorry, sis, but you know how I went after Daddy's Jack? Talitha nodded. Mom was home when I got there, and there was a truck full of stuff in the driveway. She told me she was leaving Daddy and moving. What? Talitha was stunned. It was obvious. You're kidding, right? I pulled her to me. I'm afraid not, baby. What did you do? She asked. My feelings were a little hurt. Tori had asked me exactly that. Why did they think I'd done something? He didn't do a damn thing, Tori hastened to say. Mom did it all. She met someone, some Charles she just knows we'll love. What? How are you sure? You could be wrong. Tori interrupted her. I knew you were going to say that. I wrote it down. She pulled out her phone and turned on the recording for Talitha. Once again, a polar opposite reaction followed. Talitha began to cry and, without waiting for the drama to end, burst into genuine tears. Tori moved to her other side, and we made Talitha a sandwich, hugging and stroking her while she cried for her broken heart. I could feel the tears streaming down my cheeks, and Tori was wiping her eyes too. What? What are you going to do, Daddy? Talitha finally managed. I have no idea, I said. What can I do? She's leaving. I can't make her stay. I'm not sure I'd want to, even if I could at this point. Talitha, what are you going to do? Tori asked. I'm going to talk to my mom, she replied. I know you guys heard it straight from her lips. I need to hear it for myself. I know the tape isn't lying, it's just… if she tells me what she told you, I'm going to be really mad at her. I already am. I'll also be deadly sad. I know, doll, I'm still in shock. I'm not, Tori said. Daddy, you need to talk to a lawyer to defend yourself. Jesus, Tori, just listen to yourself, Talitha said. Defend myself? This is Mom we're talking about. So, Mom, the woman we've known all our lives, suddenly decides she needs to separate from Dad, gets into a relationship with some bullied dude, and you don't think she's capable of all sorts of other disreputable behavior? Tori said. I know what you mean, said Talitha. It's like the Twilight Zone, Tori. I know, sis. It is. But we have to deal with it. Is she still home? Talitha asked. As far as I know, I replied. But I have no idea how long she'll be there. Talitha stood up. I'll go over there and talk to her, she said. Meet me for dinner? We agreed on a place and time, and she picked up her bag and left. Tori snuggled up to me and I put my arms around her. For a few minutes we sat in silence, each immersed in our own thoughts. Daddy, do you know any lawyers? She asked. I snapped out of my reverie. Yeah, I guess I do. But I don't know of any that handle this kind of case. Call someone you know and trust and ask them to refer you to them, she said. I couldn't believe it had come to this. A few hours before, I had been fat, dumb, and happy. Now I was talking about calling a divorce lawyer. This was the mother of all curveballs, and she had a wicked hook. I knew a bunch of very influential attorneys. Some of them were my university colleagues, and I even knew some government lawyers. Tori and I brainstormed and came up with a name, and he recommended several names, one in particular. Her name was Amanda Sloan, and I talked to someone in her office and made an appointment and got a list of things I needed to do and bring to the meeting. I needed to go home to pack all the things I would need for the appointment the next day, so Tori drove me home. She packed for herself and Talitha and informed me that they would be staying with me for the foreseeable future. I objected that it wasn't necessary, but she was adamant. I realized it was best not to argue with her since she had made up her mind. I needed to get all my financial information together and she helped me. I worked with investment accounts and gave her the login information for our bank. Daddy, you're not going to believe this, she said. What, honey? You have $50 in a checking account and $1,000 in a money market account, she said. Is that enough to keep you below the minimum? That, yes, I think that's the minimum, I said. But we should have a lot more than that. Mom must be making some really nasty moves, she said. Are you going to be okay? Yeah, I'll have to move some money around. Open a few different accounts, I think. I have money at the credit union that she doesn't have access to, and I'll probably use it. But that's pretty cold-blooded, Tori. Really? I think it's illegal, Dad. I don't think it will do her any good. You'll have to ask your lawyer. We met Talitha for dinner, and she was very shaken by the conversation with her mother. I had to hear it from her, she said. I'm sorry, and I knew you were telling me the truth. But some things you have to hear for yourself. You're not mad at me, are you? No, baby. I understand, I told her. Tori put her arm around her. I wouldn't believe it either if I wasn't there, she said. What are you going to do, Tally? Mommy has a fantasy about getting you and me together so we can meet Charles, she said. We'll love him. I told her that not only was I not going to meet Chucky Boy, but I didn't want to meet her. But she lied to you guys. About what? Tori asked. She lied. I made her tell me. I told her if she lied to me, I'd find out and I'd never talk to her again. She was having fun with a guy. I'm sorry, Dad, but I don't want anything to do with her. Don't apologize at my expense, I said. Hell, well, I guess we know now. I don't want anything to do with her either. That wasn't entirely true. I was definitely not okay. And my emotions were all over the place. Grief, sadness, bewilderment. Yes, anything. But the predominant one was anger. I was pissed off to the max, and everything else took a back seat. I was on a lawyer's break. Tori and Talitha drove me to her house and waited for me. Amanda Sloan was a tense and taciturn woman. She scared the hell out of me, or would have if she hadn't been on my side, which she was. In 2 days, she drew up divorce papers, put a restraining order on our finances, and ordered Tessa to pay back every dime she had taken. Neither of us could transfer or spend money or move possessions except for normal day-to-day expenses. Because of this, Tessa called me. Why are you being so difficult, Dax? What do you mean by saying I'm difficult? I asked. I don't want to talk on the phone, she said. I'll come over. She looked a little shocked to see Tori and Talitha. Girls, why are you here? She asked. I wanted to talk to your father alone. We live here, Talitha said. We don't want Daddy to be alone, Tori informed her. Don't worry, we won't stay since you're here. They grabbed their bags and left without a word to Tessa, who looked like she wanted to say something but changed her mind. You said you wanted to talk, I reminded her. What did you want to say? She sat down across from me at the bar with a sigh. Dax, I don't want this to be any more complicated than it has to be. I still love you. I just need to be with Charles. We can be friends. We have daughters who need both parents. I have nothing to do with your relationship with the girls, I told her. You're going to have to deal with that. Make friends? I don't think so, Tessa. I don't have any friends who treat me the way you do. Hell, I don't even have enemies like you. Why did you get that court order? She asked. I was just taking money to get settled and pay my moving expenses. Well, half of it was mine, I told her. Maybe more than half, but we'll put that behind us. You have a job, Tessa. You make good money. Yeah, but along with your job, you have accounts at the state credit union, she said. Yeah, and you've never contributed a dime there, I told her. As long as we were together, everything was ours. Now I have to think about what's yours and what's mine. Let the court sort it out. I thought you said Chucky Boy was a roller skating enthusiast. She wrinkled her nose. Stop being childish, Dax. His name is Charles. You think I care what you think? I asked. I'll call him and you whatever I want. Is that all you have to say? No, that's not all. I want to talk about the girls. What did you say to them? I didn't tell them a damn thing, I told her. Tori was here, remember? She recorded your speech and showed it to Tally. The only person they talked to was you. You must have said something to them, she said. They wouldn't have been so angry if you hadn't. Listen to yourself, I said. Jesus, Tessa, you dropped a bomb on all of us. They're smarter than any of us. They don't need me to tell them bullshit. They can see for themselves what you've done. How long has this been going on, Tessa? Why didn't you ever tell me you were unhappy with me? With us? We could have tried to make things right. She looked a little wistful. I wasn't unhappy, she said. Haven't you ever met a man, Dax, who knew at once that he was important to you? Do you know that instant attraction, like two magnets that are attracted to each other? Yes, I have, I told her. I've met you. She couldn't look at me. Can't we just move on, Dax? It doesn't have to be bitter and angry. We can still be friends. We've loved each other for too long to give it all up. We can, I said. The problem is that I don't want to be your friend anymore, Tessa. What's more, I almost never want to see you anymore. It's a big city, After the divorce, I doubt I'll have an excuse to talk to you again. That's not true, she said. The girls will have their own things to do. Graduations, games, and Talitha's wedding. Life goes on, Dax. I guess so, I said. I'll do what I have to do. I'm still the same person, she said. You used to like me. No, I didn't, I replied. At least if I did, I never really knew you. I'm done with you. You can leave. No, I'd rather go. Close the door behind you. I grabbed my keys and jumped into my Jeep. I drove to the river, parked, got out of the car and leaned against the front, trying to find my calm and find my center. I stood like that for about half an hour, and then a voice brought me out of my reverie. Hi, Daddy. It was Talitha. Hello, doll. How did you find me? Yeah, we all have the family location feature on our phones, she said. You insisted on your own, remember? I laughed. Yeah, I insisted, come to think of it. I don't think I've used it since you turned 18. She slid into me, took my hand and put it on her shoulders, her small, warm body pressed against mine, and I felt comfortable. It's beautiful here, isn't it? She said. I like just looking at the river, listening to the ducks. Yes, I said. Anna. I don't want to interfere with your feelings, but what did Mom say? She asked. I sighed. She just wanted to know why I was making her give the money back. She wants us to be friends. I told her that we really aren't, but she said that we'd have to be together in matters involving you and Tori, so I better get used to it. She was silent for a moment. I don't think you have to worry about that, she finally said. Tori and I have talked a lot. Neither of us is going to invite her to any of our hangouts, Dad. I squeezed her lightly. Are you sure, doll? She nodded, her hair spreading across her face. Yeah, I'm sure. Not that we miss her and wish she was different, but that's not what I'm going to go through, Daddy. Yeah, I understand. Let's call Tori and ask her if she wants to meet us for Mexican food, I said. She was fine with that, but Tori couldn't make it. She had a project at the university, so it was just me and my baby girl. It was all pretty predictable. Everyone knows people who have gotten divorced, even if they haven't experienced it personally. We heard the stories, even if we never thought it could happen to us. There were a lot of meetings, conversations, and eventually we settled the details and the divorce went through. The girls stayed with me for 2 weeks before I insisted that they move back into their apartment. They both objected vehemently, but I needed them to get their lives straightened out and get back on track. Listen, I told them, I'll be happy if you both live here for the rest of my days. I never wanted you to move out, but you did. I understood why, and I still do. Things have changed for me, but they haven't for you. You have your own lives. I hope there will always be room for me in them. But I want you both to remain yourselves. Do you understand? Yes, Papa, Talitha said. We don't want you to be lonely. Well then call me. Come over anytime. Say you want to go out to dinner. Ask me to go with you. Do what you've always done. They snorted slightly and I hugged them tightly. I get it, Daddy, Tori said. I know you're right. They continued to keep me informed about their lives, and the day the divorce was final, they came back and stayed with me for another week. I had no idea what was going on between them and their mother, and they never mentioned her. I continued to study, taking a few more essays and extra classes. I missed being married, missed having someone to snuggle up to at night, someone to take care of, someone to do little things for. When I woke up in the night to turn around and hug my wife, the empty bed usually brought me to my senses and the longing overcame me. Gradually, I got better. It took a year before I realized it, then 2. Tori had gotten her master's degree and was working on her doctoral dissertation. Talitha got her bachelor's degree and put her studies on hold for a while. She went to work for a mortgage company and seemed to be thriving. Tessa intervened in our lives from time to time. She showed up at Talitha's graduation and made a scene. She overheard the girls mention that we were going to celebrate and insisted on coming with us. Mom, are you sure you shouldn't rush back to Chucky Boy? Tori said. She frowned and looked like a storm cloud. Charles and I aren't together anymore, she announced. Oh, that's too bad, Talitha said. When did this happen? If you were talking to me, you'd know it's been 18 months. Well, we've been busy, Tori said. It was better than most comedy shows. I snorted, and Tessa threw me an angry look. We all arrived in separate cars and drove to the barbecue where we had agreed to have dinner. We managed to get an extra chair for Tessa, but the girls made it clear they didn't want her sitting there. She didn't stay long after dinner, and I was flying to Tarawa the next day to discuss plans for the resort. I was a consultant on the project and decided to participate as a shareholder. It was a beautiful place, beautiful ocean, great beaches, and I decided I was going to spend a lot of time there. I went to a few clubs, met a few people, danced with a few lovely ladies, got lucky twice, and came home refreshed. I decided it was time to come out of my shell and start living again. The thought crossed my mind that I was going to go back to California for the vacations. I was born and raised there, and I wanted to wander around the old neighborhood, see how things had changed, maybe meet some of the people I went to high school with and see how their lives had turned out. I invited the girls over, but they had too much to do to find the time. We had a motorhome, so I decided to take it. We hitched a little Wrangler to it to drive around the neighborhood. I serviced everything, stocked up on everything we needed, and hit the road. It was a lot of fun. I stayed at campgrounds, attended all sorts of events, met lots of people, mostly couples who were doing the same thing. Being single was dreary, but what was. It took me 3 weeks of traveling because of all the moving. But I found a place, got settled, unhooked the Wrangler, and was ready to sightsee. I spent 3 days driving around Ventura, Santa Barbara, and Ojai. Everything had changed, but not so much that I couldn't get my bearings. I was sitting outside the Coffee Connection coffee shop on Roblar in Ojai, looking through the newspaper, and noticed a bit of commotion. Some Karens were trying to get in without a mask. Yeah, they were a pain in the ass, but I figured after 2 freaking years, everyone knew what was up. Several people waited to get inside, but Karen didn't move from her spot. One woman waved her hand in disgust and walked over to the tables. She sat down and pulled out her cell phone. I guessed she was waiting for the commotion to end. She looked very familiar. I knew I had seen her before, but I couldn't locate her. It wasn't until Karen finally left and the woman went into the house for coffee that I realized. It was watching her gait that jogged my memory. Jacinta de Leon, I remembered. How could I have forgotten? She had moved to Ojai when I was in 3rd grade. I wasn't much for girls, of course, but she took a desk in the next row, directly across from me, and met my gaze as she walked back to her desk. I'll never forget those eyes, burning, huge brown, so dark brown, almost black. She smiled at me, white teeth flashing and lighting up her face. I was never the same. My idea of girls had flipped 180 degrees, and she, had become magical. She sent me a note when we were working on an assignment. It contained only hello and her name. I wrote mine on another piece of paper but wanted to keep the one she gave me. We had one recess and I was drawn to her like a magnet. I had a soccer ball and we kicked it around on the playground. She played soccer much better than me, and that never changed. She was the most athletic girl I'd ever met, played soccer all through high school, and I was fascinated. It turned out she lived only 3 blocks away, and my house was behind hers. We walked home together every day, and she became my best friend. All through middle school, we sat in the cafeteria together every day, tried to coordinate our schedules as much as school allowed, and by the time we moved on to junior high, I was madly in love with Jacinta de Leon. Unfortunately, the feeling was not mutual. I was her best friend, and had a strong attachment to her. I suffered in silence, too awkward and too afraid of ruining what we had as friends to convey my thoughts to her, which I always left unspoken. I gritted my teeth when her boyfriend of the month joined us at lunch, watched her dance with everyone at school while she always made sure I got 1 or 2 too. One day we were sitting in my room playing cribbage and she asked me, "Dax, how come you don't have a girlfriend?" There was no way I could answer that question, because I couldn't tell her that the girl I wanted didn't seem to notice me, so I just stammered, terribly embarrassed. "I'm going to help you," she announced. "What? How? What do you mean?" I managed. "You'll have to wait and see." She was cryptic, but it soon became clear. Soon, a string of her friends appeared on the stage. She had some beautiful friends too. We remained best friends until she moved to Los Angeles and I moved to Texas. For a few years, I didn't see her or hear from her. Then she showed up, and the years favored her. That sultry, smoldering girl turned into a sultry, smoldering woman, but there was a kind of airiness about her. Looking at her, one could tell she was minding her own business. She was elegantly dressed, a beige one-shoulder, figure-hugging dress, obviously silk and very stylish. Black shoes with a low heel emphasized her gorgeous legs, which were 3 inches above her knees. Slam! I watched her flipping through her phone while sipping her coffee, and suddenly she stopped. It was as if she sensed I was watching her. I quickly lowered my gaze to my iPad so she wouldn't think some creepy stalker was looking at her. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her turn around, and suddenly there was a squeal of delight. "Oh my God, Dax, is that you?" I looked up and saw her heading towards me. I stood up just in time to catch her as she lunged at me. She almost knocked me down. I remembered that this was how she greeted me when we hadn't seen each other for a while, our whole lives. "Geez, Dax, it feels like it's been 100 years. What are you doing here? Are you alone? Is your family with you? Oh my God, I can't believe it's you." The coffee she still held in her hands made my chest ache, and I disentangled myself from my predicament. "Here, sit down before you scald my stomach," I said. She laughed, sat down on the bench, and pulled me to her, pressing herself against me and wrapping her arms around my waist. I put mine on her shoulders, and the years seemed to melt away. Dax and Jacinta, best friends, just like back then in 5th grade when we sat on the bench in the cafeteria. "Why are you here?" she asked again. "How long have you been here? How long are you here for?" "Give me a chance, Jacinta," I laughed. "You never let me talk." She giggled. "Okay, I'll just sit here and you talk." "I have a van," I told her. "I'm leaving on a tour of the country and I just wanted to see the neighborhood. I've been here for 3 days and I don't have a schedule." "But why are you here? For all I know, you were in Los Angeles." A shadow ran across her face and then disappeared. "I moved here 3 years ago," she said. "I have a real estate office here and business is booming. Are you going to stay for a while? I'd love to chat with you. What are you doing tonight?" She hadn't changed a bit. She had me smiling inside and out. "I don't have any plans," I told her. "I get up every morning and decide what I'm going to do today." Dax, I know you're married and have kids," she said. "Is your wife with you?" It was my turn to hesitate a little. "I'm divorced, Peach. It's a long, boring, and painful story." "I don't have time for long, boring, and painful stories right now." She bestowed one of her dazzling smiles on me. God, she was gorgeous. "You're taking me out to dinner tonight," she said. "I have a fashion show in 20 minutes. Give me your number." I did, and she immediately texted me. "Save me in your contacts," she said. "I'll send you a message with the time and my address." "Do you only have a van?" "No, I have a Jeep that I tow," I said. "Okay, you can go," she said. "I've got to run, Dax. God, it's so good to see you. I can't wait for tonight. Put on a shirt with a collar." She'd always stirred up a storm of emotion in me, and that hadn't changed one bit. I wandered around the store and remembered something. Jacinta adored turquoise. She'd been collecting it for as long as I'd known her. I wondered if she still loved it. I was reminded of this as I walked past a store that sold handmade turquoise and silver jewelry. I walked in and made my purchases. The woman who made this jewelry was very talented. There was a heavy silver arm bracelet with a large stone, and to it was a dainty ankle bracelet with stones attached to it, making a single set. I took it and asked for it to be wrapped. I hoped Jacinta was still collecting them. I went back to the parking lot, used their services, put on black slacks and a pink button-down shirt, spritzed on some cologne, and felt more ready than ever. She texted me her address and I pulled out my iPad to look up directions. When I got to the place, I was shocked. It was the old part of Ojai, and it had a great location. It had gardens, black wrought iron fencing, gates, a guest house over the garage, and the house itself was worth millions. It was old, stuccoed, 3 stories, and I felt intimidated. I parked on the street, honked at the gate, and they let me in. I walked past the fountains, the riot of flowers, the large koi pond, and walked up to the front door. In front of the garage, I could see a green Jaguar E-Type from the late 60s. There were mature avocado trees growing everywhere, and it was a damn beautiful place. I marveled at how well this realtor was doing. The bell made an impressively deep and tinkling ding-dong sound, and when she opened the door, I was paralyzed. She saw the look on my face and giggled. "Am I coming through?" she asked. I managed to thaw enough to speak. "Don't fall for compliments, Jacinta. You know how you look. You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." It was the right answer. She threw herself on top of me and hugged me tightly for a long minute. "God, it's so good to see you, Dax. I've missed you so much." "Hey, I brought you something," I said. She looked in the gift bag, dug through the fabric, and pulled out a box. Opening it, she let out a squeal of delight. "I can't believe you remembered." "Let me get the bag," she said. "I've booked us a room at the boathouse in Hendry Beach." She walked into the house and I looked around. The entryway had a spiral staircase, seemingly marble, that went up to all 3 floors. A tall grandfather clock stood between 2 of the windows, and a huge chandelier hung from the ceiling, as if decorated with gilding. Everything felt luxurious. After a few seconds, she returned and took my hand as we walked toward the gate. "Are you sure you want to take my Jeep?" I asked. She laughed. "What? You think I'm too good to drive a Jeep? I'm still me, Dax." I had to chuckle. "Well, it looks like you're too well dressed for a Jeep, and damn, Jacinta, from the looks of this place, you're pretty well settled in." She looked up at me and giggled, her face brightening and her white teeth gleaming. "I've settled in pretty well, haven't I?" "Yes. What are you into, girl?" And we got into the Jeep and she typed the driving directions into her phone. "Well, right now I'm finalizing a real estate development deal on Lake Casitas," she said. "As soon as I get approval from the city, I'm going to get a really big score. The real estate here is just crazy, Dax." "I can only imagine," I said. "Tell me about your life." "Well, it's like a big book," she said. "Hell, how long ago was it? Let's see. I moved to West Covina, became an agent for a big firm, and worked like hell. I made tons of money, got really lucky, and started my own agency." She hesitated. "I don't have enough time to tell you everything before we get to the restaurant. You tell me about yourself. I know you have children." "I do," I told her. I asked her to open my iPad, used my face to unlock it, and she flipped through my photo albums. "My God, your girls are gorgeous," she said. "Is this your wife?" "Ex-wife," I told her. "We divorced almost 3 years ago." "I didn't know. I apologize if it's a sore spot." I shrugged. "It is. You can't run around and be depressed forever. I'm fine, really, and it doesn't bother me to talk about it. Are you married, Jacinta? I notice you're not wearing a ring." "No, that's the one mistake I've never made. I was in a long relationship, but we never married. I'm something like you, but it's been 4 years for me, and I can't say I like talking about it. Are you close to your girlfriends?" "Very," I answered her. "I invited them to come on a trip with me, and they wanted to, but they're too damn busy. I think they'll fly down and meet me somewhere the first chance they get, stay with Dad for a few days, and then come back again." She smiled at me, dazzling me again. "That's so sweet," she said. "What about you? Any kids?" I asked. "No, just me," she said. "I always thought I'd make a bad mom. Mine is great, but she set the bar too high. I could never be her." We arrived and she took my hand as we walked inside. After the food arrived, she started chatting with me like she always did when we were kids. "The guy I was in a relationship with worked as a real estate agent for another firm," she said. "We talked about having him move in with me, but one thing or another happened and we never decided to do it. And then," she looked at me seriously, "that's the part I don't like to talk about." I reached across the table and squeezed her palm. "It's okay, Jacinta. You don't need to tell me." "Yes, I do," she said. "I was working with him on a major development deal and found out he was cheating me. He went overboard buying a big piece of land and didn't do his homework." "Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good," I said. "It isn't. Right in the middle of the lot we wanted was a 200-acre parcel that belonged to the city. They sold it to him, but it was a gift from the estate that went to the city with the stipulation that it couldn't be developed for 50 years. It was to remain natural, and so he found himself with millions tied up in something he couldn't sell and couldn't develop. What happened? I asked. He tried to talk me into buying the property, told me a bunch of lies about how he was going to get around the problem, but it never happened. He pulled some shady deals, tried to bribe people, got caught, and went to jail. Fortunately, I always sensed something was wrong, so I didn't look into it until it all blew up. So what did you do? I asked. After Bob went to prison, I sold my agency and moved back home, she said. It was the best move of my life. And look, there you are. Definitely the best move of my life. I was shocked to see you, I told her. She smiled. I was too. Are you excited? God, yes, Peach. It was such a surprise. I had no idea you were back. I was just planning to wander around the neighborhood, reminisce about old places and old times, and then head to the coast. And how long will you be here? She asked. Well, I won't have anywhere to be until the fall semester, I told her. Even then, all my classes will be online, and I have one engineering consulting job in December. Dax, if I put off all but the most minimal meetings, can we go out with you? She asked. Her pretty face flushed slightly. I mean, if you don't want to, if you have plans. I have plans, I said, and her face lowered. And every one of them will be better if I fulfill them with you. Her eyes sparkled. Really? I mean, oh yeah, let's do all the shit you have planned. She was so excited I had to laugh. You haven't changed a bit, Jacinta. Oh, but I have changed, she said. I've gotten smarter. She lowered her voice to a hoarse whisper. I also keep growing hair in weird places. I laughed out loud. After that, we caught the attention of other diners at the restaurant with our antics. It was so much fun to spend time with this amazing woman. She was funny and incredibly smart. As I walked her to the door, she chatted nonstop, making plans about when and where she could go with me. At the door, she gave me a hug, pulled me tightly to her, and left. I swear I spent the next 2 weeks having the time of my life. Only with my girls did I get that kind of pleasure. Jacinta was like a breath of fresh air. I didn't realize how familiar my life with Tessa had become. I became comfortable, relaxed, and I guess inertia took over. Maybe it felt that way to her, but it was exciting and new. It wasn't exactly new, it was like when I was a kid, walking home from school with my best friend who happened to be the beautiful girl I loved, and life was sparkling and new every day. I wondered how long it would last, if the new sparkle would fade and things would become ordinary. I began to notice things. I've never been the most sensitive guy in the world and probably didn't notice many things, but this one was special. I started to notice the way Jacinta was looking at me. Those huge brown eyes with flecks of gold and green that turned honey gold in the sunlight looked at me in a way I had never seen before. The 2 weeks I had promised to stay had turned into 3, and I had no intention of leaving. Jacinta never brought up my words about the 2 weeks, but she never talked about me leaving either. We were together almost every day, and she always clarified when we would be together before dropping me off or dropping her off. It wasn't until it had been almost 2 months, we had been antique shopping all day, and she invited me to come in when I dropped her off that she surprised me. We were sitting snuggled up against each other on her couch. Some old kung fu show on the TV that neither of us were watching. We were sipping a very good single malt. And then I noticed that she hadn't said anything or responded to me for a minute. I turned around to see if something was wrong, and she was looking at me, her eyes liquid. I squeezed her and asked, "Is something wrong, Peaches?" "No, yes, maybe," she replied. I laughed. "Well, that certainly clears things up. Dax, there's something I need to tell you, to ask you." She hesitated, inhaled deeply, and exhaled with a sigh. "Dax, we've been in touch for a while now. I think you stayed just for me, don't you?" "Yes," I told her. "Why? That's what I need to know. Do we have something going on, Dax? I mean, we're just old friends and you're just hanging out with a friend?" "Well, that's how it started," I began. "What do you think is going on?" "It's more than friends for me, Dax. I mean, I remember all the good times, how much I loved you, and you're still the guy I loved back then, only even more so. Why didn't you ever ask me out, Dax?" I Jesus, Jacinta, you were my best friend. I wanted to ask you out, believe me, but I was afraid it would be weird, especially if you didn't want to go out with me and I'd lose you. I couldn't take that risk. It wouldn't have been weird, she said. I wanted you to ask me out, Dax. I tried everything I could think of to get you to pay attention to me. But you never did. I would have asked you, but I was afraid too. Really? I asked. Really, she whispered. I loved you with all my heart, Dax. I just finally accepted that we weren't meant to be together, that you loved me. But not like that. Oh my God, Peach. You couldn't have been more wrong, I said. I guess I was just as clueless. You were the girl of my dreams. I used to walk around in a daze all the time, wishing you were mine. Do you still dream about it? She asked. You mean? We laughed together. If you're just leaving and we're never going to see each other again, I think you should leave now, Dax. You make me fall in love with you all over again. And if you don't invest in me here with me, I won't be able to be that close to you anymore. How long can you stay here, Dax? Indefinitely, I told her. I mean, I can stay, really. I have a job I have to get out of in December. I have a house. I love my girls, Jacinta, and they're a huge part of my life. I know, she murmured. We'll get through this if we try, Dax. Let's leave it at that. I want something else right now. What? I asked. She led me into the bedroom and we got down to it. I remembered back to when I was 20 years old. It was like I'd been transported back in time, and Jacinta was a time machine. My online classes started and I spent some time teaching, but we spent most of our time together. One week followed another, and the first thing I realized was that 4 months had passed. Tori and Talitha kept asking me when I was coming home, and I think they knew something was up. They asked what I was doing in California for so long, and while I wasn't trying to hide anything from them, I wanted to tell them about Jacinta face to face. But that was taken out of my hands when one day, while in class, I received an alert on my phone. It was a text from Talitha. Dad, I'm coming to visit you for a week. I'm flying into LA on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Will you pick me up? Sure, doll. I can't wait, I replied. I couldn't just pounce on her when she flew in, so I talked to Jacinta. Kids, Talitha is coming to stay with me for a week. We were in the van, cuddled up on the couch. Uh-oh, she said. Dax, you have to tell them. I'm not going to hide for a whole week. I can't stand not seeing you for a week, and besides, I want to meet them. I know how much you love them. They look like girls I'd really love, and I can't wait to meet them. I squeezed her. I know. I want you to meet them too. I was just looking for the right time to talk to them. I thought about flying home for the weekend to talk to them. Now that's not going to happen. So I thought about inviting them to Zoom so we can get to know each other a little bit. Will you be okay with that? Yes. When do you want to do it? I'll contact them and figure out a time, I said. Monday night, I think. Do you have any plans? And I still managed to get the girls to agree to Zoom with me, even though they were very hesitant about why I wanted to do it and didn't want me to tell them until the last minute. I hooked them up, they chatted with me for a while, and finally I worked up the courage. I know I was bloody cryptic, I said. I was planning on going back and talking to you two. You've been hitting on me and I've been blowing you off. Dad, you're not as smart as you think you are, and we're not as dumb as you think we are, Tori said. Yes, we are. Talitha picked up on that. You've met someone, haven't you? I heard Jacinta giggle there in the kitchen. Yes, and I really think you'll like him, I said. The look on their faces was priceless. Their jaws dropped and they sat stunned for a minute. Jacinta was dying, and then Talitha said, Nah, good one, Daddy, well done. Talitha out, and don't think you can fool us? I could hardly contain my extreme satisfaction at leaving them speechless for once in my life. As a matter of fact, that's exactly why I wanted to meet you, I said. Girls, there's someone I want you to meet. Be nice, okay? Don't let her see what bitches you really are. A double mocking snort sounded. We're waiting, Talitha said. I called out to Jacinta and she came in and sat on my lap. Girls, this is Jacinta de Leon, I said. I pointed to them in turn. This is my oldest, Tori, and my baby, Talitha. Jacinta waved her hand. Hello, ladies. Jacinta has been my best friend throughout high school, I told them. We've kind of reconnected. I'll tell you the whole story, but she's the reason I've been here for so long, and will probably be here for a long time to come. Best friend, huh? Are you out of your mind, Dad? God, Jacinta, you're so gorgeous. Talk about TMI, she laughed. I can't believe you said that, Jacinta. We're going to really like you, that's for sure. You're just gorgeous, just like Tori said. You know we're the gatekeepers for Daddy, right? Jacinta nodded. I'd think less of you if you weren't. I love him, girls. I think I've always loved him, but I let him get away once. It was partly his fault, but I'll do my best to make him a part of my life. But I don't want you to think I'm taking him away from you. Well, I don't like him being in freaking California all the time, Tori said. We need to see him too, Jacinta. I know, and we'll work something out. I understand, believe me, Jacinta said. I have things I'm not ready to talk about yet, even with Dax. I'm so glad Talitha is coming. I can't wait to meet her and you, Tori. Do you think you can make it? I can, Tori said. I'll take the weekend off. I don't want to take your father or any part of him away from you, Jacinta said. I want to be a part of his life, and a part of your life too. I want to love you, and for you to love me. Tears came to her eyes, and the girls realized she was starting to worry. Oh, it'll work out, Jacinta, Talitha said. We'll make it work. Tori and I know a thing or two about making things work out. I laughed. They don't lie, I said to Jacinta. They're mean little creatures, but my heart belongs to them for life, and they're saving it. I believe you, especially about the imps. The girls giggled and engaged Jacinta in conversation, asking her a million questions, telling awkward anecdotes about me, and we spent the entire 40 minutes of the session. When we were done, I leaned back in my chair and just held Jacinta in my lap. Well, these are my babies, I said. Impressions? They're adorable, she said. I love them already. They're great. They have your sarcastic sense of humor, just from a woman's point of view. I feigned shock. Don't look at me like that, she said. You know how you are. When Talitha arrived, Jacinta decided I should pick her up myself, just to get our daddy-daughter groove going, so I picked her up and drove her to the In-N-Out in Hollywood. When she came out of the gate, it took my breath away. I had forgotten how beautiful my baby girl was. She ran up, lunged at me, and almost knocked me down. She was hard. She wrapped her arms around me and dragged me behind her luggage. Walking beside me, I realized how tall she was. It seemed like just yesterday she was a tiny little girl, but now she had grown and turned into a spectacular woman. How did this happen? Tori was usually a little quieter than she was with other people, but she was never like that with me. She chatted with me the whole way while we ate hamburgers and rode in the Jeep. She wanted to tell me a million things and ask a million questions. When we got to the van, she still wasn't exhausted. She chided me for not letting her take the bedroom, but when I showed her how the table pushed back and turned into a second bed, she was thrilled. We just chatted for a couple hours, and then I told her that Jacinta had invited us over for dinner. She was very excited, kicked me out to shower and change in private, and when she called me back in, everything was ready. I changed, used the campground facilities, and we got into the Jeep. Talitha kept going on and on about the scenery and neighborhoods we were passing through, and the closer we got to Jacinta's house, the more impressed she became. I pulled up to the gate and entered the combination. When we pulled up to the house, Talitha looked at me with big eyes. Daddy, your girlfriend lives here? You have a lot more game than I would have guessed. I laughed. She's a major real estate developer. You never would have guessed that back in high school. She's Hispanic, in case you hadn't noticed, and her parents came here from Honduras about 5 years before she was born. Her dad worked in an almond orchard and eventually owned it, and her mom owned a small tamale farm when we were kids. She did everything herself. Wow. Talitha was impressed. We parked and walked into the house. Jacinta was in the kitchen, and as soon as we walked in, she and Talitha froze for a second, looking at each other. I was taken aback, but they both broke out into huge smiles and rushed to hug each other. What are you cooking? Talitha asked. It smells really good. Well, our main course will be quite spicy, Jacinta explained. Do you like spicy food, Talitha? Hell yes, Talitha said. Jacinta, you can call me Tally if you want. Tori always does, and Daddy sometimes. Thanks, honey, but I adore Talitha. I can change, but you don't mind, do you? Talitha laughed. Not at all. Tell me more about the spices. Jacinta came over and gave me a quick kiss. Then she and Talitha walked over to the stove and stood side by side. Jacinta opened the oven and a delicious mouth-watering aroma floated out. These are lamb ribs with lots of spices, she explained. We'll take the meat off the bones and put it on tortillas with pico, brown rice, and refried beans. Dax, you should go out and find avocados. I haven't picked them in a couple days, so there should be plenty. Oh my God, Tally said. You just went and picked avocados? Jacinta laughed. Yeah, I have a lot of trees, she said. I want to go, Talitha said. Do you need help, Jacinta? No, I have everything ready. Just need to peel and slice avocados, she said. You go with your father and I'll put the dishes on the table. I took the basket, and Talitha and I walked around the property picking ripe avocados. This place is amazing, she told me, and Jacinta is even prettier and cuter in person. You're doing great, Daddy, I laughed. Thank you, doll. I'm glad you like her. I love her. You know that. Yeah, I can tell, she said. She loves you too. I can see it in the way she looks at you. Dinner was as delicious as it smelled, and sitting at Jacinta's huge table with two of the most beautiful women on the planet wasn't bad either. I volunteered to do the dishes, and when I was done, Jacinta and Talitha were sitting on the couch with Jacinta's laptop, conspiring about something. When I walked in, they closed the laptop, and Jacinta patted the couch between them, motioning for me to sit down. Uh-oh, I see you two are up to something, I said. What? Tally said. He's being paranoid, Jacinta. It happens to old men, I guess. Jacinta giggled. Hey, we're the same age. Yeah, but you're not paranoid, Talitha said. Neither am I said. But I know you. You've been plotting against me your whole life. Yes, but all my plots have been for your benefit, she said. We made plans. They made plans I had no part in, and we played a couple games before heading back to the van. Talitha continued to throw slanted glances at me until I got nervous. What? I said. I like her, Daddy, she said. You're a lucky man. I know, right? You better not let her get away, she said. It's a good thing I'm here, or you'd be in trouble. Huh. Because you're here, you'd probably be in trouble. But seriously, I'm glad you're here, doll, and I knew you'd like her. For a moment, she sank into thought. Daddy, how do you think Mommy will react? Well, since it's none of her business, and I don't plan on seeing her or asking her, I don't care, I said. I see her from time to time, she said, and so does Tori. What do you want me to tell her when she asks about you? Do you think she'll ask? She nodded. Yeah, she always asks. I had no idea, I said. Are you lying to her? She laughed. No, but I tell her almost nothing. Almost nothing about you. I just tell her he's okay, and then I tell her about something else. I guess I'll just tell her you met someone if I have to explain anything. Do what you think is right, I tell her. I trust you. You're smarter than me. Yeah, smarter. She giggled and smiled at me the way she'd been smiling since she was a little girl and first stole my heart. We had a wonderful week, sometimes just me and my baby girl, sometimes the three of us, and a few times they went out and did things without me. By the time Talitha got back to Austin, they had bonded and were making plans for the next time we would be together. Tori flew in for the weekend, 3 weeks later, and her reaction to Jacinta was just as positive as Talitha's. We were on a roll. I stayed at work until it was time to do counseling. I talked to Tori, Talitha, and Jacinta, and we agreed to take some work leave. Jacinta and I flew to Tarawa, and the girls arrived the following evening. I worked during the day while they did tourist stuff, and we spent the evenings in a tropical paradise. By the time we left, I had 3 very swarthy girls, and Tori and Talitha had become Jacinta's best friends. I had to go back to Austin to do some real work in my office. It was going to take about 2 weeks, and Jacinta flew in on the second weekend. The girls picked her up Friday morning, and she spent the day with them until I left. We met for dinner, and Jacinta stayed with me. Sunday night, we were going to take the girls for a walk, but unfortunately, their mother chose that day for one of her infrequent and unscheduled visits. She was well aware that if she tried to warn them in advance, they would be busy, so she always tried to catch them off guard. When Jacinta and I arrived, she was at their apartment, and it was awkward as hell. Tori introduced Jacinta as Daddy's girlfriend, and you could see the shock on Tessa's face. They tried to escort Tessa out by telling her we were going on a date, but she wouldn't budge. "So how did you meet Dax?" she asked Jacinta. Jacinta smiled. "Oh, I sat across from him in math class," she said. Tessa looked dumbfounded. "You both take the class?" she asked. I laughed. "No, we were 10 years old each." "You've known each other since you were 10? Tessa was puzzled. "How come I've never heard of you or met you before?" "We kind of lost sight of each other," Jacinta said. "We only met just this year." Tori interrupted this pleasant scene. "We'd love to stay to chat, Mom, but we have plans." Tessa snorted unhappily, but Tori firmly escorted her out the door. The look on her face would have made milk curdle. "I'm sorry," Talitha said to Jacinta. "I know it was awkward. She came in about 5 minutes before you and didn't want to leave." Jacinta laughed. "That's all right. It was bound to happen sooner or later. Since I have taken my place in your lives, I will be there for you." At dinner and afterward at home, where the girls took us, we had a long talk. I think the subject had long occupied all our thoughts, but no one wanted to discuss it. Talitha started it. I think she and Tori had conspired, and Talitha was chosen to be the spokesperson. "Daddy, what are your immediate plans and what are your long-term plans?" "About what, doll?" I asked. "Well, I mean, do you plan on living the rest of your life in a van in California? Or do you have something in mind?" I laughed. "No, I don't plan on living in a van for the rest of my life. Jacinta and I haven't talked about the long term." "Do you mind if we hang out here while you talk things over?" Tori asked. I looked at Jacinta. "I don't mind," she said. "I know how much your father means to you. I know how much you mean to him. You also know that I love him and I'm not going to let him go." Tori nodded. "Yeah, we know that." "We don't like you living so far away from us," Talitha said. "Dad, I've talked to a few people I know at work, and Jacinta and I have talked about it too. I'm going to get my broker's license, and she and I are going to start a real estate business here." I looked at Jacinta. "Really? You little minx? You haven't said a word." She giggled. "Yes, Dax. I'm going to leave my business in Ojai, but Talitha and I agree it's a huge market, and I have an idea. Well, the girls and I kind of came up with it together." "I'm all ears," I said. "I don't know what you want," she said, "but I want you all and always. I want you to live with me in Ojai 6 months of the year. I'll hire an office manager, and 3 months of the year we'll spend here. Talitha will handle most things in our business. Sounds good?" "Yes, it sounds, but that's only 9 months," I said. "The other 3 I want to spend on Tarawa." It was unexpected, but I fell in love with the place. As a resort owner, I could do that, so that's what we did. It didn't quite work out that way because we were regularly interrupted by trips to Austin when we were in Ojai, and vice versa because Jacinta needed to take care of business. But that was the general schedule. We didn't let anything disrupt our stay in Tarawa, and Tori and Talitha spent a lot of time with us when we were there. When you least expect it, life surprises you. We were in Austin for 3 months, and Talitha sent me a picture. "Hi, Daddy. How are you doing?" "Studying the inspection schedule for interstate bridges in Ohio. How's it going?" "Just finished studying commercial real estate," she replied. "Can you have lunch?" "Late? About an hour?" I asked. "You can. Ichiyumi at 1 o'clock?" "I'll be there." I wrapped up, and when I walked in, the hostess took me back to the booth. I was surprised to see another girl sitting next to Talitha. "Daddy, this is Campbell Martin," she said. "She's my girlfriend." I must have looked like an idiot. My jaw dropped, and I know I looked stunned. Campbell was clearly unhappy with my reaction. Her impassive bitch face took on an extreme expression, and she grabbed her purse. "Screw this whole thing, Tally. Let me out of here. I need this shit," she said. "Hold on, Campbell. Please," Talitha began. "Please forgive me." I needed to do something, and fast. I just, I never, My surprise is what made me act like a fool, Campbell. I'm sorry for what I did. I never knew. Talitha never told me she was gay. Not once. You two just dropped a bombshell on me, and now you take offense that I was caught off guard? It's my fault, Tally said. I'm sorry I came down on you like that, Dad. Take it easy, Campbell. Campbell is my first girlfriend. I would have told you sooner if there was a reason. Why didn't you, Talitha? Did you really think I would love you any less? For God's sake, doll, you have my heart, you know that. She cried just as the food arrived, jumped up and headed for the restroom. Damn, boy, why did you say that? Campbell asked. Campbell, I don't know you, I said. I guess if you're Talitha's girlfriend, I'll recognize you, but you don't know me either. Just stop feuding and swearing and treating me. It won't help. And seriously, Campbell, don't you think if you're a lesbian, you'll tell your parents about it? I have no idea, she said. I don't have parents. But you don't have a clue either. It's not an easy thing to do. I don't know about parents, but you tell me. If you have a secret from someone, you really love that person and you don't want to hurt them or make them disappointed in you, even just a little bit, would you tell them something and risk getting hurt? I have no idea, I told her. I don't know what I said or did that made Tally feel like she couldn't trust me, but maybe I wasn't as available as I should have been. Talitha went back and applied her makeup so that it wasn't noticeable that she had been crying. I took her hand and pulled her to me as she walked by, pulling her close to me. I love you with all my heart, I told her. You're my doll, and nothing in the world will change that. Now go and sit next to your girlfriend. She went and sat next to Campbell. I'm sorry, Daddy, Shh, I told her. It's over. We'll never bring it up again. Now tell me how you met Campbell. She smiled. She was a pitcher on the Florida State team. We met when we played in a tournament there. Love at first sight, huh? I asked. Campbell laughed. For me it was. But she had a boyfriend, so we stayed just friends, and were until I got a job and moved here. What do you do? I asked. If that's okay with you. I don't mind, she said. I'm a software developer. She looked at Talitha and rolled her eyes. He's testing me, she said. Will I pass the test? I had to laugh. You're a beautiful woman, Campbell. You don't need me to tell you that. I thought I was being subtle, but I guess you got me. No, if I was your father, you wouldn't have passed the test. You're gorgeous, but there's just too much unconcealed about you. What the hell is that? Who asked you? Lucky you're not my father. Campbell, you're the one who asked him, Talitha said. She giggled. I like the way she looks, Daddy. I raised my hands in a sign of surrender. That's all that matters, I said. After such a stormy start, the conversation went pretty well, and we parted on friendly terms. The next evening, Tori came to socialize with her old man and dropped a bombshell on me. I told her that I had met Campbell. Tori, did you know about her? I mean, did you know Talitha is bisexual? She sighed. Yes, Daddy. I always knew. And before you start, if you tell me the secret and promise not to tell it to her, I won't snitch on you either, okay? Yes, I understand, love. How well do you know Campbell? Pretty well, she replied. Tally told me a lot about her in college. She was kind of unassuming. I know she had a steady girlfriend and got caught cheating. Talitha didn't like it very much, and they didn't socialize for a while. Wow, I had no idea, I said. I don't think that's a good thing. Dad, she's a grown woman, she said. Let her live her life. I know that. But if I thought you were involved with some cheating boyfriend? A sudden thought crossed my mind. Tori, you. She laughed. No, Daddy. Well, I can be a little nosy under the right circumstances, but if I'm looking for a life partner, it's going to be a guy. We chatted some more and she went home. Jacinta came in and I told her about my day. When I told her about meeting Campbell, she looked a little strange. Oh my God, I said. Don't tell me you knew too. She started to get uncomfortable. Yes, Dax, I did know. Talitha told me she was going to meet you today and tell you everything. Why am I the last to know important things about my daughter? I asked. You're a man, she said and laughed. Girls feel more comfortable talking to other women. Well, I don't know what to think about that, I said. Do you know she had an old girlfriend and cheated on her? Tori told me, she replied. And it doesn't bother you? Dax, they're 25 years old each. How old were they when it happened? 19, 20? Jesus, Jacinta. Because she was young, cheating is okay? She looked like she was a little annoyed by that. I didn't say that. Did you make mistakes when you were 20? Yes, plenty, I said. But cheating wasn't among them. Things were a little tense for a few days, and then I really got under the hot seat. I told Talitha I was worried about her, especially Campbell. You know how awful it was when your mom cheated, I told her. She flared up. Yeah, I know. I'm the one who told you, remember? And you think because mom is the way she is, Campbell will be the same? Damn it, Daddy, that pisses me off so much. She left and didn't answer any of my pictures or phone calls. When Jacinta got home that evening, I got both barrels. What did you say to Talitha? She asked. Why did she tell you? I asked. Yes, she told me. She came to our office and cried. Damn, Dax, why did you have to open your big mouth? Because I'm worried about my daughter. I was furious that Jacinta didn't seem to understand anything. You have a funny way of showing it, she replied. No, there's nothing funny about it. It's cruel and mean. Just because you were traumatized by what Tessa did, you have to be so worried about Campbell? She's a sweet girl, Dax. She's changed, and you should give her a chance and stop interfering. What do you think you're doing? My voice trailed off angrily for the first time since we'd stayed with Jacinta. You're meddling, and she's not even your daughter. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. You're a jerk, she said quietly. How can you say that to me? She's my daughter. You should ask her. I know you have scars, Dax, but taking them out on me or Talitha by saying that to me is just petty and mean. She staggered away, her back stiff and angry. I heard her footsteps in the bedroom for another half hour. I sat there puffing away, and when she came out, she had suitcases in her hands. What are you doing? I asked. I'm going back to Ojai, she said. As soon as you get your head out of your ass, call me. Her eyes were full of tears, and she could barely speak. I'm not staying here with you when you're in this condition. She walked away, and I sat stunned. What the hell? How could this have gotten so aggravating? Why couldn't she understand my point of view? Why couldn't Talitha? I lay idle for the rest of the day and slept poorly that night. Memories of Jacinta's wounded gaze haunted me in my sleep. In the morning, I got up as if in a fog. I ate some cereal, too discouraged for anything else. At 10, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked out, it was Campbell. Damn. She was the last person I wanted to see. I sighed and opened the door. She swept past me into the hallway. We need to talk, she said. I want coffee, strong, black. I stood there like a dummy. Dax, either you give me coffee or you and I are leaving right here, she said. I'm mad as hell at you, but I get you, man. So do you want to throw up your hands or do you want to give me coffee and talk to me? I had to laugh. This girl was crazy, stunningly beautiful in her little top and ripped jeans, and she was fierce. Coffee then, I said. Please don't kick my ass, Campbell. She grinned. I can do it. You know I can. I'm a damn good kickboxer. Somehow that doesn't surprise me, I said. I have some blue mountain beans from Jamaica. I haven't tried them yet. Would you like to try some? Do you like good coffee? Yes, she said. And I do. I wish I had a coffee grinder. You know, Dax, I've always wanted to own my own coffee shop, not like a franchise one. She sat behind the bar and talked to me while I ground beans and used the Rocket R58 portafilter to make our cups, talking about her dream coffee shop. I sat across from her at the bar and we sipped our coffee. It was delicious, and she approved. She set her cup down and covered her face with her palms, resting her elbows on the bar, and God, she was gorgeous. Our faces were about 2 feet apart, and her huge brown eyes, so dark they were almost black, never took their gaze off mine. Dax, you're crazy, she said. I chuckled. No doubt, I said. But how, specifically, this time? Talitha is so upset with you, she said. Me too, for that matter. The thing is, she doesn't understand you. I do. Understands? I inquired, having no idea what exactly it was about me that she understands. I understand, she nodded. Your wife, Talitha's mom, cheated on you. Talitha told you about it? I asked. She did? And she told you exactly what she found out about it and how devastated she was? Yes. She also told me how devastated you were. Okay. What are you trying to say, Campbell? You see your baby girl, she's with me, and I know what Tori told you about me, what I did. And what do you think? I suppose you think I'll cheat on her, she said. You think I'll break her heart, and that will make you feel guilty about what your wife did to you. She seemed to be onto me. So what are you going to do? I asked. I'm going to get to know you better and let you get to know me. I'm going to tell you about myself, about what it's like to be me. Okay, you're off to a good start, I told her. Yeah, I'm good. She gave me one of her dazzling smiles, her teeth incredibly white against her swarthy skin. Dax, I know what I look like, you know? First men hit on me, and then women. I can imagine. You're a beautiful girl, Campbell. Her face brightened slightly. Thank you. I don't know how much Tally told you about women's college athletics. There are a lot of female athletes there, especially in softball. I think there were about 10 girls on my team who weren't lesbians. I mean, a minority. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't know any of that, but I believe you. Well, imagine this. I was a sophomore in high school and I picked up another girl. She was an athlete. We were together all through sophomore year. I didn't cheat on her, and as far as I know, she didn't cheat on me. What happened? I asked. Well, I was invited to camp. It was very prestigious, Dax. Only elite players were invited there. It was run by two softball legends. It was a huge opportunity, and I took it. You played baseball in college, Talitha told me. I did play. I was hardly as good at baseball as you were at softball. I know I was never as good as Talitha. Not many people play, she said. But imagine, who was your favorite professional player? Probably Cal Ripken Jr., maybe Don Mattingly, I said. Okay, imagine the two of them invited you to training camp. How impressed would you be with them? Very big, I said. They were legends. They were my heroes as a kid. Well, that's exactly what happened to me. But the script is a little skewed. I was 20 years old, Dax. Here are these two hot women I've idolized my whole life, and they're teaching me, showing me so many things that make me a better player. Then I realized, they're not just interested in me as a player. Do you see where this is going? I think so, I said. That's where you're going to have to use your imagination, she said. I know you're not attracted to those baseball players you idolize, but can you imagine if they were beautiful women? To me, that's exactly what they were. They took me to great restaurants, dragged me to clubs, took me to concerts. They pushed me to my limits. Tears glistened in her big brown eyes and started streaming down her face. She was breaking my heart, and I realized how much it hurt. Telling me about it. It was clear to me that she was telling me this because she loved Talitha, realized how much my daughter meant to me, how much I meant to Talitha, and she was opening up to me, showing me her vulnerability, because she needed me to trust her. I needed to stop this pain, because I was causing it myself. I took the tissues from the box on the counter, went around, handed her the tissues, lifted her to her feet, and hugged her. At first she was stiff as a steel post and seemed to just tolerate it. I pulled her to me and said quietly, Campbell, I'm so sorry. Please, I don't need to hear any more. I understand everything, okay? I'm sorry I made it necessary, and I know how brave you are and how much it hurt you to come here and tell me. Please forgive me. I felt her melt in my arms and she pressed herself against me, sobbing sincerely. I just hugged her and whispered that everything would be okay, that I would fix everything and that I was sorry I hadn't given her a chance. After a while, she calmed down and I carried her into the living room to the couch. She snuggled up to me and we talked for a few hours. It was time for dinner and I prepared a meal for her. She helped me by snuggling up to me. And despite all the differences between her, big and small, I felt like I had one of my daughters with me. We drank 2 bottles of wine, and she was one of those happy, giggling drunks. She stayed the night, slept in Talitha's room, and in the morning she dialed Talitha's number and asked her to come to my house for breakfast. When Talitha walked in, we were making pancakes, just having a friendly chat about nothing, standing side by side at the stove, and Campbell had one arm around me. Talitha swept across the kitchen and came between us. "What are you doing here, Campbell?" she asked. "What? How? Dad?" "She came to enlighten your poor dumb father," I said. "Doll, I'm sorry for the way I acted. I understand why you love Campbell, and I know how much she loves you. Will you forgive me?" She clung to me. "I love you, Daddy, and I always will," she said. "It's easy for me to forgive you. Daddy, I need to apologize to you too. I thought you were just a jerk." We both looked at her. "Well, I thought I was, and you kind of were. Campbell set my mind right, and Jacinta did too. I know you love me and thought you cared about me. You just need to work on your social skills. So do I. I should have confided in you a long time ago, Dad, and I wish I had done so and returned your calls. I'm afraid you're going to have to work on Jacinta some more." "I know. I'm afraid I said a lot of rude things to her." "I know. She told me." "What?" Campbell asked. "She didn't tell me." "I told her that Tally was my daughter, not hers," I said. Campbell made a small clucking sound. "I don't think Tally feels the same way Jacinta does." "I think technically you were right," Talitha said, "but you're terribly wrong. I am closer to her than I ever was to my mother. I wish she were my mother, and you owe her an apology." "What she said?" Campbell smirked. "I hope you like the taste of crow, dude, because you're about to eat a whole murder." We all laughed, finished baking pancakes, and had a great morning. I had a lot to do and there was no point in wasting time. 2 days later, I flew to LA, rented a car, stopped by the flower store and bought all the roses they had. Jacinta wasn't home, so I let her in, arranged the flowers all over the house, and was on my knees in the hallway when she walked in. She was a little startled, and I managed to tell her, "I stuck my head out of my ass. I'm so sorry, Peach. Please forgive me." She burst into tears, ran across the entryway on her heels and hugged me. She pressed her cheek against the top of my head, and all those curls covered me like a veil. "I hate being mad at you," she said. "I'm sorry too, Dax. I know you meant well, and I guess I felt like we were all kind of conspiring against you. We need to communicate better. All of us." I ate crow. We went back to Austin and went rafting in Colorado with all the girls. That was my family, and I decided Campbell was going to be part of my family too. I had a new daughter, a ferocious brown jungle cat, but we were family. They were with us on Tarawa the night I proposed to Jacinta 3 years later. I initiated them into the plan, and they had something to do while we went to dinner. As I got down on one knee near the table before dessert, Jacinta's hand came up to her mouth and she burst into tears. It threw me off balance a little, but I burst forward. She reached out and I slipped on the ring. She lifted me to my feet and threw herself into my arms, still crying like a baby. Peach, I was hoping this would make you happy," I told her, "not cause these tears of despair." She giggled weakly, snuggling against my shoulder. "I am happy," she said. "I cry when I'm really happy too." It was just a little curveball. I felt like I hit it with a swing. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, so subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.